This is that Mojotone 5E8-A kit that I diagnosed yesterday as being overall great. The problems were twofold. First of all was the audio taper volume pots versus linears. So the amp seems to have less gain. I've got this on the normal channel right now at noon, which would be equivalent to about 8:30, 9 o'clock if this were linear taper. So this is where the amp would really just start to make sound here. And it's quite nice for a tweed clean. And I'll show the tone controls and the presence in a little bit. The other problem with this amp I discovered after doing the video yesterday, in which I made a mistake. I forgot that in this model, the center tap of the output transformer is after the choke. Most tweed Fenders are not like that, and this is not a very common model. And so my initial bias measurements were off. I thought the amp was biased at about 47% idle. Turned out to be closer to 19% idle. When I remeasured everything from the actual center tap connection, that's when I found out it was like 18. And Mojotone copied the 56K fixed resistor that's in the original schematic that gives you nowhere near the correct bias for this amp. With that 56K, the bias negative voltage was negative 55. The schematic shows negative 48. I experimented. I've got a 22K in there now, which sets it at negative 42, and these JJs are at about 49% idle dissipation. And I tried some other 6L6s I have here, and they're all in that same range. If the owner wants to go in there and put a trim pot, he can get it hotter than 48%. This is a lot better and closer to what you would have had in 1958 than what Mojotone supplies. I don't know why they just copied that bit of the schematic, even though all the voltages are different. So these tubes are certainly going to be more responsive at 48, 49% idle dissipation than they were at 19. Of the tubes in here, they're all brand new JJs. The leftmost, if you're looking from the rear, 6L6 is a little microphonic. I'm saying this to the owner. You can either change those out. I think they're new tubes. You might be able to have an exchange period still. Or you can get some tube dampeners. It's not too bad, but you'll hear it here and there. So this is pretty low volume with the volume at noon, which is why the owner thought he had the problem. But again, noon right now is going to be about 2 or 3 on the volume. So 8:30, 9 o'clock when you change these out to linear. Let me turn this up to 9 on this, which is just below 3 o'clock. And that's the normal channel. At almost 3 o'clock now is going to be about 10 o'clock when you go to linear. So that's right before the onset of any overdrive in this amp. And I want to show it on the treble channel as well, the bright channel. So same setting. Notice I've got this radial ABY box here. The 2 channels in this model, you cannot jumper them the way you can most 4-hole Fenders and Marshalls, the Bassman, the 5E8 twin, etc. So you have to use either a Y cable, or in this case, a better option is this ABY box. So here's the normal channel. And the bright. It's not a huge difference in this amp compared to other Fenders. The bright's fairly subtle. You might even play around with increasing that from the 100 picofarad to maybe 220 if you want more of a distinction. They both sound quite nice. The hum is because I'm sitting with the pickups so close to the amp. If I were 10 feet away, you wouldn't hear that at all. That's how I'd use this on a stage typically. but then I couldn't reach the controls for this demo. So let's stay on the bright channel. And let's play around with the tone stack. Right now I've got the tone stack at noon and the presence at about 9. Let's turn it to 12. That's noon and then down. So the presence is relatively subtle in this amp. You can hear it. It doesn't make a huge difference, but it's there. It's interesting to me, all the changes that were happening in the late 50s, where a new model would come out and only last a year or two, really. They were making big changes, doing experiments. Notice that when they get to 63 and you get all the AB763 amps, aside from some tweaks to the baseband later in that decade, all the 60s amps were pretty much locked in from 63 through about 71, 72. As Miles Davis says, when you make a mistake, play it again. They'll think you meant it. All right, so that's the bright channel with the volume at 9. Let's go up to just over 10, which would be noon if this had linear taper. So that's where the drive starts. Still roll back the volume and clean up. Let's do the tone stack tweaks. So treble. Notice that treble affects the gain a lot. So to a degree, you want to keep the treble up a little bit if you want more snarl, because you can push the preamp all you want, but if the treble's down here at right now 10 o'clock, you're not going to get the same response as if you turn it up to like 2 o'clock. Let's do the bass. So again, that really affects the amount of gain. It's a subtractive EQ, so it puts quite a load on there. You can turn the treble and bass down a little bit and leave more of the mids. You have to use both channels to really make that work. As far as the gain goes, we'll get to that in a moment. But if you like the sound with, say, the bass at 8.5 and the treble at 9, where I have it here. But you find it a bit too bright, you can just lower the presence. That won't roll off the volume. So even with the presence almost all the way down there, it's still got a lot of snarl with the tone stack settings. And these are some Alnico speakers, some quite good sounding Weber 12F 150s. Sorry, 12F 150s. Let's show the maxed volume you can get out of either channel by itself, which would be without diming the tone stack on the treble channel, the right channel. Which is a lot of fun, and it's not cripplingly loud in the room. But if you have both channels engaged, and I'm going to use the both feature of this ABY pedal, you can go from 1 to 2. These are unpotted pickups, and I'm 2 or 3 feet from the speakers. So again, normally I would play at that level farther from the amp, but it gives you a sense how much gain the amp can have. On that note, let me turn it down and go back to single clean channel. On that note, to a lot of modern ears, this amp doesn't have a ton of gain. It's got two 12A Y7s in the preamp, and then, because it has 4 inputs, so takes each input gets its own triode, and then a 12A Y7 for the second and third gain stage, and then a 12AX for the last gain stage and the cathode follower, the cathodine phase inverter, that is. So if you want to increase the gain in the amp and get a little more snarl, so you'll reach a louder clean faster, and then it gets into even more overdrive than this, and it will also be a little bit of a brighter, more upper mids, sizzly, in a good way, distortion. You can put 12AX7s in there. I'm not sure that changing all 3 AYs to 12AX7s would be good. I'd say start with V3, and if that's not enough, it might be fun to go to a 12AX7 or 5751, which is right in between the two, for V2. So your treble channel would have more gain, and the normal channel would be cleaner. And if you use this with an ABY box like this, you could go between a very clean neutral normal channel and a slightly gainier, brighter treble channel. Remember that the treble is only really the bright cap in this amp, and so as that volume pot is increased, you get less of a difference. You can also invert that so that your normal channel has more gain and your bright channel is cleaner. But that's a really good sound, and all the hum is just proximity of the pickups to the transformers. I mean, literally, they're right here, and the pickups are right here. And all the squeal was unpotted pickups too close to the amp. But of course, you can do that on purpose and do all your Pete Townsend stuff, and it's awesome. Just that kind of Pete Townsend stuff. I don't smash these. Anyway, so this is a pretty good recreation of a 5E8-A low power tweed twin. And you can hear why it's called the low power, because if I had its big brother, the 5F8A or the 5F8 in here, and had it cranked like this, I'd still be saying, what, 2 hours from now? This is a lot of sound at relatively low dB. You know, you'll still get kicked out of a small club if you try to gig with this, but for most medium-sized clubs, it's pretty awesome. And there's so many sounds you can get from various permutations of blending channels and different tone stack settings. I can only hint at it here. I can't go through and be encyclopedic. So if you get a chance to play one, temper your expectations a little bit. It's not what you're used to. It's not even what you think you're going to be having. But it's real simple to get great sounds. The other thing I want to mention, since the tone stack is kind of limited on this, unless you're willing to sacrifice a lot of gain, and the presence doesn't do that much, that's when it comes down to core things like, all right, it's kind of bright here with this 0.8 millimeter pick, and the presence doesn't really dial that out. Let's go to 1.5 millimeter. You really hear that L6 rattle there. Anyway, you can smooth it out. Just make adjustments elsewhere in your rig. You know, the difference between this pick and this pick to the player is not huge. But the sound difference is quite dramatic. So, you know, this holds true for so many apps. If you play an app that you've always read about being just fantastic, and other players love it, and you find it too dark, or too bright, or too X or too Y, sometimes the big secrets to your favorite players are things like what piece of plastic they use, or whether they use a piece of plastic at all.